So one day, just a short time ago, I was watching the squirrel, and typically, as most people know, squirrels tend to bury their nuts and their acorns and the food that they gather in the ground. And what happens is that many times they bury more than they can eat at that particular point in time, so they come back and look for that food or the nuts or acorns, whatever they might have buried, and try to find them in the same spots. But many times, and I was noticing this time and time again, that the squirrels couldn't find exactly where they had buried their nuts and acorns. And so automatically, the fact of what happens to squirrels when they can't find, and what goes through the squirrel's mind when they can't find their nuts and acorns. And all of a sudden I thought, well, there's a story there about that. And this is what I'd like to present today, is the story of Solomon Squirrel's adventure with the missing nuts. So one day, Solomon Squirrel was looking in the woods for nuts and acorns for his family. He does this every single year before the weather gets colder and the trees are empty. And squirrels are very, very creative, and they are very busy during the winter or the fall period of time, as we always know this. So this day, Solomon Squirrel gathered an armful of nuts to put in his bag. He always carried a little bag with him to put his nuts in. He placed some of those in a pile because he couldn't fit all the nuts in one bag. Now, just as most squirrels do with their extra nuts, Solomon dug several holes and buried nuts in each one of those, just as they always do, and just as I was always observing them. Solomon knew he would, though, come back to get the nuts later. But sometimes he even thought to himself, I can't always remember where I put those nuts. But today, he came up with a great idea. He decided, and this was so smart of Solomon, he decided to make a map. No one had ever thought about doing this before. But Solomon decided to come up with the idea of making a map to show exactly where he had hid his nuts. And he decided to put an X on the map wherever he had hid his nuts in the various holes. He thought, what a great idea. He was so proud of himself for coming up with this idea about a map. No one had ever thought about that before. So he gathered the map along with his nuts, and he was so proud of himself, he decided to take it back to his own tree and share this idea with his best squirrel friends. And sure enough, that's what he did. He came back to this tree, and he rushed over to two of his best squirrel friends, and he took out the map and he held it out for them to look. And he said, look what I have come up with, a brilliant idea of making a map and showing where all the nuts that I buried on the map. And you know what happened? His friends looked at him and said, oh no, don't tell me, Solomon, it's another one of your harebrained ideas. This is not going to work. I just don't think, one of them said, I just don't think that's a good idea. And the other one said, oh, I don't think it's going to work either. Well, Solomon, what Solomon did was to think to himself, I'm going to show my friends that this actually can work. So the next day, Solomon decided to go back to the same woods where he had hid those nuts and drawn the map with those X's and show his friends. He said, come on along with me. I'm going to show you that this is the greatest idea possible of coming up with a map. So sure enough, when they all got back to the woods, Solomon took out his map and he said, now let me show you. And he pointed on the map all the X's, and he said, that's exactly, each X has all of my nuts. So Solomon decided to take the map, put the map on the ground so he could follow exactly where the X's were. And he went to the first X on the map, and he dug, and he dug, and he dug, and he kept digging deeper and deeper, and lo and behold, no nuts. He looked at the map, he went to the next X, and he started digging and digging and digging and digging. No nuts. He went to the next X. No nuts. Where were the nuts? He thought to himself. Oh my word. I thought I could find the nuts, but they aren't there. Solomon couldn't believe what was happening. He knew that there were nuts exactly where the X's where he had drawn on the map. And the only thing he could think of was that in the time between when he showed his friends the map and the time that he brought them back, they had come back and used the map to find the nuts for themselves. And so what he did was he started to blame them. And he pointed his finger at them, and he started to yell, you stole my nuts. You took my idea, and you stole my nuts from the map. And his friends were shocked. These were his best friends, keep in mind. And they said to Solomon, oh, Solomon, we would never do that. You're our best friend. We would never do that to you or to anybody else. We didn't steal those nuts. So Solomon, he was kind of disturbed actually by their reaction to him too. And he thought to himself, and then he kept thinking to himself, and he decided to take that map back, and he looked at the map. But this time, he decided to kind of turn the map over. And he looked at it again, and those X's were in a different spot, simply because he turned the map upside down. And he thought to himself, maybe this is the reason I couldn't find the nuts. So Solomon put the map the right side up, after he had turned it upside down, on the ground, and he started to go to the first X, and he dug, and what did he find? He found his nuts. He went to the second X, and he dug, and what did he find? He found the nuts. He went to the third X. He dug. He didn't even have to dig that far, and he found his nuts. He went to every single one of those X's on the map, and he found his nuts. Sure enough, he found all of the nuts, and he discovered that this was his fault. So he gathered up all the nuts and came back to show them to his two best friends who had told him that they hadn't stolen his nuts, and he felt terrible. He apologized to his friends, and he said, I am so sorry that I blamed you for taking my nuts. It was my mistake. I made the error in thinking that you stole my nuts. And it wasn't you, it was me. I am so sorry. And I apologize to you, and I'm going to give you all my nuts. And I'm so sorry. And they accepted his nuts, but they said, Solomon, you know us, we would have never have done that. And Solomon said, I know that too. And again, I am so sorry. So what happened was Solomon thought and thought and thought more about what this was. This was an important lesson to Solomon. And Solomon's always learning new lessons, just as we all learn lessons in life. And what were some of the lessons that he learned? First of all, he learned that you should take responsibility for your own actions, just as he did. He apologized, he recognized that it was his mistake. Accept the facts that mistakes do happen. We all make mistakes. But we have to learn from those mistakes. And certainly Solomon did learn from those mistakes. And if you don't know all the facts, don't jump to conclusions. And certainly Solomon had jumped to conclusions and blamed, of all people, his best friends. So they all agreed, all of his friends agreed, that Solomon had actually come up with a brilliant, almost a brilliant idea of making a map with all the X's as to where he had buried his nuts. As a matter of fact, now, every time they all go out together, and they all go out together now to gather their nuts and bury their nuts now, but they've decided that they were going to take their own nuts, and sure enough, this is what their maps look like. From now on, if you look at any of their maps, you'll see the word top at the top of their maps. That's the story that I'd like to share with you today, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Hello everyone, my name is Robin Byouk. I am the Cultural Arts Supervisor for the City of Greer. I really hope you enjoyed Solomon Squirrel's story today, so I have some really fun crafts for you to do. Solomon Squirrel thought it was really important to have a map. I'm going to show you how to make an easy map out of things you have around the house. We are going to need construction paper, a large piece of white paper or any color paper. You're going to need scissors, a glue stick, maybe some crayons or some markers that you find around the house. So the first thing that we need to do, as Solomon told us, is we need to mark the top of our map, the top. So you write top on your map. Okay. Now, if you want to make a map for your treasure where you're going to be hiding your acorns, you can make some little houses. So what I did was I started out with a little square, and then I cut a triangle. So I used the edge of my gray paper to make a little triangle. If you're creating a map of your neighborhood, you want to put houses in there. I cut out some little rectangles and squares to make a house and drew the windows in. And if you don't want to cut out little pieces, you can just draw them on. And then of course, squirrels live in trees. We have to have trees in our map. So I made these little trees. And you know how easy this is? I cut out some little triangular shapes out of this envelope. And then I cut out some round green shapes and I glued them together. And then I got ambitious and I made a little stop sign. It has 8 sides. That is the basic things that you need for your map. And then to create your map, you need to draw dotted lines. You need to have directions as to how to get to different things. So you can put dotted lines to your house, another dotted line here, another dotted line here. And don't forget to mark X where the treasure is hidden. And if you're very ambitious and you like to draw things, I did some research on some Native American symbols. If you want to add some Native American symbols to your map, they're pretty easy. Here I've got man, woman, sun, river, camp, some deer, in case you spot some deer in your woods, mountains, and good luck finding the treasure. So we've just wrapped our last map up and handed it to somebody to go looking for our treasure. Now I have a really cute little craft for people who like to put their fingers into paint. We're going to make some little thumbprint acorns. And these are super easy, no artistic ability really needed. I'm going to show you how to do it. For our acorn thumbprint craft, you just need some paper, any color, some paint, whatever you can find. You can mix some browns and beiges together, brown and white, brown and yellow, because you want to have 2 different colors of brown. And you'll need your thumb and some paint brushes, some water to rinse your brushes out, and paper towels to clean up. The acorns are 2 colors. The acorn is one color and the top cap is another. So I took 2 shades of brown and I mixed this medium brown, which I will use for the bottom of the acorn. So all you do is you take your thumb, you put it in the paint, and then you start pressing your thumb down on the paper, and you'll see you'll need to, it's best to put a lot of paint back onto your thumb. And then when you're finished, make sure you clean up your thumb so you're not taking paint all around the house. And then to make these little caps of the acorns, you put your paintbrush in the other color. And basically you make a C with the little line on the top. So that's the cap of the acorn. And that's it. That's our simple thumbprint acorn craft for the day. Thank you for joining us. I hope to see you next week on our Tall Tale Tuesday series with the City of Greer.